This is Adam Gillespie with Rancid and Sweaty Cats coming at you with yet another video, and this one's going to be covering the new casting of James Gunn's new DCU Superman and Lois Lane. Superman Legacy, James Gunn taps David Cornswet and Rachel Brosnahan to play Clark Kent and Lois Lane in DC Studios' film. Now, it's no surprise to me, David Cornswet has exactly been it's pretty much from day one of finding out that Henry Cavill is getting fired from his position as Superman. There's been a huge fan outcry for David Cornswet to be Superman, to play the next Superman. And I get it, he does look like a younger Henry Cavill. He kind of has that wide jaw. He's tall like Christopher Reeve. You put some muscle on him, he could probably look like a pretty decent Superman. And I've seen some pretty good Photoshop images of that. Will he be able to portray the role properly? Well, that remains to be seen, and really, it doesn't necessarily rest on his shoulders alone. It also rests on the characterization regarding the scripting of the character that James Gunn decides to write in. If James Gunn can't get it right, then it's not going to matter how good David Cornswet is. It's going to matter how bad the story is, or how good the story is. Same thing goes for Rachel Brosnahan. She could be the best actress in the world, and I believe she is a pretty good actress, but if the story sucks, it's not going to pan out well for him either. Nevertheless, I wanted to cover this, and I wanted to give you guys my basic thoughts on this. Following months of audition tapes and in-person screen tests, Warner Bros. And DC Studios have their new Clark Kent and Lois Lane. David Cornswet has been set to play Superman, while Rachel Brosnahan is on board to play Lois Lane in James Gunn's Superman Legacy. The decision comes after the two were among the few selected to test in front of DC co-chairs Peter Safran and James Gunn, who is directing, in full costume and makeup for the parts. I would honestly like to see those audition tapes and see exactly what it is that they thought looked so good, because that would give me a pretty good indication as to whether or not this will work. And are they using lines from previous comic book adaptations, or are they using lines from an early draft of the Superman Legacy script? That is something else that I think needs to be answered, because if it's from early Superman comics, then great. I mean, that means they're going back to their source material, but if it's from the script, we could get a little bit of an indication as to how these characters are going to interact with each other. The test took place over 2 days with the men. One of those days saw... with the men, meaning that Safran and James Gunn. One of the days saw the three actors in full Superman attire. Sources close to the audition said that each actor had closed test details that would expire after 2 business weeks. So clearly all parties wanted this sorted out before a potential SAG-AFTRA strike, which could go into effect at midnight June 30th. Warner Bros. Has yet to say whether it will be attending next month's Comic-Con in San Diego, so there is still a chance the two could be introduced at the Studio Hall H panel. Yeah, that is another thing about this. Even though this should be one of the biggest pieces of media news, it's not really that big a piece of information, because it was dropped, I think, on a Tuesday or a Monday, and it wasn't dropped at a big event. And the reason for that is because these Screen Actors Guild and these writer guilds, they're all getting their panties in a bunch, and they're getting upset that they're not, this, that, or the other, or some other garbage, some excuse that they have as to why it is they're not getting paid, when in reality it's just because they're doing bad work. And because of that, everything's going to get thrown into a loop, and it's going to just get sucky and boring and crappy, and we might not see a good comic book movie for a long time if this keeps up. Nevertheless, I mean, I hope it goes well. I can see these two playing Superman and Lois. I do think that David Cornswet needs to put on a little extra mass, because he looks pretty thin in the photo they have here. I don't know if that's stretched, but he does look like a friend of mine who I always used to say looked like Clark Kent from Smallville. So I think he could portray the character well, at least in the physicality. And I don't know much about Rachel Brosnahan, but I'm sure she'll do great as Lois Lane. It's really hard to do bad as these characters unless you have a complete misunderstanding of what they stand for. I mean, take a look at the Superman and Lois TV show from the CW. The CW, of all places, was able to make a good Superman show when they put their minds to it. And I'm sure that a major media corporation who actually goes back to the source material should be able to do it right? Anyways, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Share this video out there. Subscribe. Hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss a single video that I upload. Smash that like button. And check me out on my different socials, including my Rumble. I leave links to those in the description below. I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of the week.